Hello, boys and girls. I'm going to tell you a business bedtime story from 13 Fatal Errors Managers Make and How You Can Avoid Them by W. Stephen Brown. This is a book that Hank highly recommends all of our employees read because it's important to your future. We have several of these books, so please see Sumitra or myself to get a copy and read the entire book. I will be reading chapter 6. Fatal error number 6 is forgetting the importance of profit. Earlier I asserted that management has a major purpose, to provide for the continuation of a business. Of course, but in what particular way? The following story holds the answer. One day, the president of a company was having lunch at a downtown restaurant. Halfway through lunch, he realized that 4 familiar voices came from the next booth. Their discussion was intense enough that he could not resist eavesdropping. He heard each of his managers talking proudly about his department. The chief product engineer said, "It's no contest. The department that makes the most important contribution to the success of a company is the product division. If you don't have a solid product, you have nothing." The sales manager jumped in. "Wrong! The best product is useless unless you have a dynamic sales force to get it sold." The vice president in charge of corporate and public relations had another opinion. "If you don't have the proper image inside and outside the company, failure is certain. No one buys a product from a company it doesn't trust." "I think all of you are taking too narrow a view," countered the vice president in charge of human relations. "We all know that the strength of a company lies in its people. Minus strong, personally motivated people, a company grinds to a halt." Each of the 4 ambitious young men continued to debate in favor of his area of primary interest. The discussion continued until the president finished his lunch. He stopped by the booth on the way out of the restaurant. "Gentlemen," he said, "I couldn't help overhearing your discussion and feel delighted with the pride each of you takes in your department. But I must say that experience has shown me that none of you is correct. When you get to the heart of the matter, you find that managing a company is like being a juggler trying to keep 5 balls in the air. 4 of these balls are white. On one is written product, another is sales, the third is labeled corporate and public relations, and the 4th says people. But in addition to the 4 balls, there's one red one, and on that one is the word profit. At all times, the juggler must remember, no matter what happens, never drop the red ball." He is absolutely right. Without a profit, the company with the finest product, the best image, the most dedicated people, the most impressive financial reserves can still get into trouble. The kind of trouble that can quickly make a Fortune 500 company only a memory. The profit incentive. Go anywhere in the world and you will find that the paramount way that anyone evaluates management is through its ability to create profit. Even if you are in Russia as the manager of a farm or an industrial plant, you would still measure your success by the yardstick of profit. However, they would not describe it with so capitalistic a term. They would call it an economic efficiency index that determines that amount of surplus left after expenses. In plainer words, they would still judge you on the ability to produce a profit. And you can't exist without a profit. Until the recent resurgence of entrepreneurial studies, I believe that product has become a dirty word, essentially because of the many non-capitalistic notions popular in our society. Quite simply, those who support such ideas have a difficult time relating profit and service. They would give the store away. Primarily because they've lived in a cocoon all their lives, they have developed a myopic and short-sighted opinion. Those who never shoulder the responsibilities of making the decisions necessary to provide for the continuation of a business or an institution miss one of life's great experiences. They have never made a payroll. Until someone has, he or she cannot imagine the true depths of anxiety or the total fulfillment of relief. You haven't lived until you've lived through it. It's like whitewater rafting. No business or institution can continue without generating a surplus over and above its cost of operation. Even churches and nonprofit institutions must maintain this discipline. One of my close friends, Bill Oliver, resigned his position as a vice president of marketing for a very successful software firm to become the executive director of Straight. Straight is a nonprofit service organization that assists teenagers in dealing with and eliminating drug problems. Bill and I had dinner to celebrate his first year in his new position. During the course of our conversation, I asked what had been his greatest challenge. He responded, well, to get the members of my organization to understand that we cannot help anyone unless we operate our nonprofit organization with the same discipline as any successful business. Steve, we have a great group of people who have dedicated their lives to helping youngsters with problems, but their service orientation, unless kept in perspective with good business principles, would become their greatest weakness rather than their greatest strength. Consequently, since its inception, Straight has refused to accept governmental grants, not for political reasons, but to avoid a false sense of security for its management. They operate on the premise that as long as they meet the needs of the community, money will always be available from the private sector. If they manage by the principles Bill Oliver feels are so important, the continuation of the business will occur automatically. So what contributes to the bottom line? I cannot think of a single managerial position that does not tie into the profit picture of a company. If your one responsibility entails doling out charitable contributions for a large organization, you are still tied into profit. Of course, the funds you dispense comes from the profit, but the relationship lies deeper. In fact, as part of the company's public relations activities, if you pour those funds into an activity that offends a large block of your company's clients, you will diminish the company's future profits. On the other hand, if your choice of recipients for donation enhances the public image of the company, you will help build client loyalty and make a significant contribution towards profit. Even the managers of the most speculative research and development projects of a company must accept their tie with the profits of the company. While all companies acknowledge that funds invested into research and development are risk capital, none make investments without the reasonable expectation of discoveries and information that can lead to future profits. It has always been that way. When Queen Isabella hawked her jewels and footed Columbus's bills, you can bet she wasn't doing it just to prove that the earth isn't flat. She definitely expected profitable trade with China. So, an accountability schedule. Few managers see their activities show instant profit or loss, but this does not excuse any of us from our accountability. In business, investments should always be made with a time factor in mind. If an investment does not show results within a reasonable period, you eat your losses, attempt to learn from your errors, and select another course of action. I have encountered many managers who cannot accept having time limits imposed on themselves, so they shrug off their responsibility to generate a profit. What they fail to see is that they could not be of more service to their enemies if they crossed over the lines and cleaned and loaded the enemy's guns themselves. Not surprisingly, those quick to dismiss their ties with profit frequently see their budgets trimmed first when times get rough. In other instances, a manager who failed to keep his associates properly informed of his department's contributions towards profit will find cuts made in the worst possible places in their budget. The first hit includes management in charge of training, new product development, advertising, public and employee relationships. This happens because they failed to make known their direct connection with financial gains. So keep faith in your convictions. Until the early 70s, Atlanta's transit system was privately owned and a profitable company headed by a master of management by the name of Robert Somerville. Often representatives of other transit systems stood about eager to learn how anyone could make a transit operation break even, much less profitable. When the manager of training presented a proposal for a highly sophisticated new training program to Somerville as a way to reduce the number of accidents and legal settlements that any transit operation factors into its annual budget, a chorus of people cried, "Yes, but we have no funds to dedicate to that project." But Somerville responded, "Gentlemen, you seem in agreement that such a program should reduce accidents by 10%. I want a figure from each of you. If our accidents are reduced by 10%, what would be the savings in each of your areas of responsibility? How much will we save on legal fees, settlements, and the like? How much will we save on insurance? How much will we improve our public image?" Once his staff generated the projections, Somerville studied them and said, "Since the cost of establishing the training program is less than 10% of our legal costs alone, I propose that we show faith by transferring funds from legal into training in order to realize an enormous savings. And in case you have forgotten, a penny saved is a penny earned." The program was installed and was highly successful and widely imitated. This would not have happened if the training director and his superior had not quite clearly seen the relationship of training to profit. If you cannot see the relationship between your activities and your company's profits, I suggest that your position is vulnerable at best. Every manager has a responsibility to not drop that all-important red ball. The more everyone in your company understands the cause and effect relationships between daily activity and the bottom line, the stronger and more efficient your people will become. Only by constant attention and teaching the people you manage how they contribute can you make sure that the red ball stays up and you avoid fatal error number 6.